Howdy, everybody. Bob Tallman for No Spin Rodeo. No politics, no BS, just hard-hitting news and rodeo commentary from two of the most trusted sources in our sport. Kendra Santos, Tommy Joe Lucia. Listen up. Here we go.
Thank you, Bobby T. We heard you at RodeoHouston with your famous line. Thanks for bringing us on. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 51. This is No Spin Rodeo. My name's Tommy Joe Lucia. You can call me TJ, and lots of people call me a lot of other things. We have our producer with us, Greg Teagarden, and the first lady of pro rodeo journalism, the illustrious Miss Kendra Santos. Hi, crew. How you doing today?
Great. You?
I'm peachy. Excuse me.
Doing good.
Doing good. Well, so Greg and I are both in Lexington at Road to the Horse. Greg loaded in all day. I just got here. Kendra, you have a different background. Where are you at today?
I'm in kind of between the kitchen and the living room at the moment. And then I am Oklahoma bound for work at the front, work at the end, and I get to go see baby Bo in Texas in the middle. So
that will be fun.
Yeah.
That's the good stuff. Well, we want to thank all of you that are joining us live on YouTube. If you aren't, you should be. It's No Spin Rodeo on YouTube, or some of you may be catching us live on Facebook at our No Spin Facebook page. And if not, if we're talking to you about 24 hours later, thanks for joining us on the podcast. This is No Spin Rodeo, where we talk about stuff, say things we want to say, tell you the truth, tell you what's going on. And in this episode, we're not going to do a crossfire or a point of view. We're just going to focus on feedback and rodeo news. So let's kick it off with Kendra. It's always cool to have you fill us in on the big H-Town. Roll it.
yeah, I'm. It never gets old to hear Bob Tallman with his "Hello, Houston," right? I mean,
That's right.
I love it. And we're busy and stuff, but if I have to watch it late at night or early in the morning, I don't miss a moment. I hate to see it go when a rodeo like that ends. So much fun. Anyway, so for rodeo news today, I just thought it would be fun to just kind of hit some high notes and things that maybe not everybody knows about. Just one little thing about each person who won Houston. And obviously it had a huge impact on the world standings, being over 2.5 million, record payoff, record attendance this year. 2.7 million went to the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo this year. That's a lot of people. And
now, did 2.7 go into the building to the rodeo, or is that how many people came on grounds?
No, that's how many people came on grounds. I'm assuming I got that with a press release today. But when it's for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, I'm absolutely making the assumption that it's on the grounds. But obviously, the richest rodeo of our regular season, huge impact. So in the bareback riding, let's just take it not in Houston order, but in NFR order, because it's ingrained in me. But so Rocker Steiner became the first excess ranch cowboy to win Rodeo Houston. And I feel like the public noise on that is seems like a 50-50 coin toss on, we'll get into this later because we had so much feedback about it, but some people thought Rocker should have won it. Some people thought Bradley Miller should have won it. And of course it's a judged event. And so everybody's got their opinion, but it looks to me like in the world standings, Bradley Miller still has the world lead. So Rocker virtually had nothing won before this. And I feel like when San Antonio, when we're talking about that real recently, remember he visible injuried out of the third round of his bracket with a wrist injury, I think it was. So this is year changing at minimum for Rocker. So we'll get back to some more Rocker later. But okay, the bulldogging. They went 1-2 on Justin Schaefer's Gray Horse, which when we were in Vegas at the NFR, everybody was talking about Justin Schaefer's Bay Horse Banker. Well, I guess he kind of got under the weather after the finals a little bit. He's fine now, but so old Gray, as he calls him, stepped up, and a whole bunch of guys rode him at Houston. And California's Tucker Allen, there he is. He won first, and then Rotemeyer's kid, a young kid, maybe 25 now, but he seems like a kid to me, Holden Myers, he won second but on the same Gray Horse of Justin Schaefer's with Tucker Allen hazing for him. So that was pretty cool. And I haven't seen this Holden Myers kid much.
Well, interesting. He qualified through their qualification rodeos right there in Texas. So that's a cool story. That's always good to see the underdog right up there with the big boys, and then kicking two of them to the curb. Cool stuff.
Yeah, it is neat. It's fun to see new faces and new storylines always. My very favorite moment was best friends in Arizona Ranch Cowboys, Derek Begay and Coulter Todd winning the team roping. Those two, it's like, what do I not appreciate about them? Like, they're just the best human beings. And they talk about life-changing money at Houston. And if there are two people that it will change not one hair on their head or one single thing they do today, it's Derek and Coulter. And so that was just the moment for me, was like when they got off their horses and hurried over they both still had a rope in their hand, to meet up to get their saddles and stuff. And they just looked at each other and shook hands. And it was like, oh my God, it was so cool. Cause if those guys never go to another rodeo, it's all good. And I've been spending some amazing time working on a Navajo cowboy and cowgirl story for the AQHA.
The one thing is, I felt sorry for Andy Seiler, because did you hear the interview?
Yes, and what did Coulter say? I caught him. But
I don't think he said anything. I don't even remember, but it was like one word or two, and it was so frank that Andy Seiler was like, okay.
He was just being himself, and somebody either Tallman and or Paul Hamas tried to break the awkward silence, and we're like, he needs to learn how to talk better or something. But it's like, Coulter is Coulter. Thank God. You'll never see a patch on his shirt. And if he's not roping with his best friend, he's not rodeoing. Remember, he made the NFR heading, young in his prime, starts having kids and says no.
Yep. All kinds of respect. But yeah. If you're the person that's told to get an interview for the fans sitting there, and you can't get anything, Kendra, besides yep, nope, get the microphone away from me type thing, then it's hard for him. I respect Coulter, but still, it's hard. That's a hard feel.
Andy Seiler can totally handle it and appreciate it also. So anyway, point taken. But Andy's awesome, and he knows how to deal with Coulter Todd and people. Well, there's nobody else like him. So anyway, okay. Very interesting, the bronc riding. So Ryder Wright won his first Houston title, which included a really interesting moment. There he is. What do you call that? Knuckles with Colby Wanchuk. So they in the final four, they tied with 88 points. But what was really interesting, and it was really interesting to watch, is and like Stetson was out there in the arena, and they were all talking and trying to figure out real fast, like, what exactly is going on here. Because when Ryder went, as you saw with me, the horse momentarily, a blink of an eye or maybe half a blink, started to go down just a little bit in the front. So of course they threw the re-ride flag, but then they said 88 points for the re-ride, which tied Colby Wanchuk. So it was really interesting. So like Ryder could have rolled the dice on the re-ride. Surely he knew what the re-ride was, but he chose to have a ride off. And then, they brought in non-eliminators for the write-off.
They brought in 2 milk duds. It was interesting. It took a while. It was like, oh no, this happened. What do we do? For a minute there. And I understand Ryder needed to find out if he didn't know what the reride was, he needed to find out what it was and figure out if he could win. Obviously, my assumption, same as you, Kendra, is that he looked at that and thought, I can't, is this his horse? Yeah. So see, the horse does go down on both feet.
And on the replay,
if you look
you'll
at
see
that,
a really good how he keeps his spurs going.
But what was amazing about this horse is some horses, when they stumble, they completely lose rhythm, which for a bronc rider messes everything up. Well, in this particular case, if you watch it in the reride, the horse comes up off of his knees and never misses a kick, right? He never breaks rhythm. Look, boom, back up, kick, boom, back up, kick. So, because I saw some comments that how in the world did they mark him that when that horse went down? Well, because the horse bucked the entire time, right? And we can talk.
Well, and Ryder didn't really miss.
No.
Yeah.
Nothing. He didn't, and the horse really didn't miss anything if you look at it. He never missed a kicked over his head. So I think that's all baloney. I think the score on Ryder there was correct. Now, what I really thought was disappointing was the write-off. Just because they put 2 easy E's in there, and it's hard enough when you got that good of bronc riders riding to figure out who won, right? And then they get on 2 just walk in the park horses. So I did some checking, Kendra, because I'm like, why would they do that? I did some checking with some insiders. And here's the truth. They didn't put 2 eliminators in there because they didn't want to throw them both off. Because then we would have started over again and potentially over again. So from a producing standpoint, I see that. But for the excitement of it, right? This is a ride off. Well, you heard Paul Hamas. Well, this is a ride off. However, it might not be what you expect it to be, type of thing. Kind of precasting what was happening. When I heard that, I'm like, what's going on? So that part was a little disappointing, right? Because you really what you want to do is be able to see who won, even if you're not a judge. You know what I'm saying? Kind of, to me, it would be great to say, holy moly, so-and-so got bucked off, but Ryder made it to the 8. But you know what? It's still great.
Yeah, and clearly that was, very meticulously discussed in the production meeting, the what ifs and all of the tie-breaking scenarios and all that kind of stuff, so that it's spur of the moment, real time. They can all, but he did let us know, that it is sort of what to expect. So, yep. And I mean, I wouldn't have thought of that they would have done that for not wanting to have a second, write off. So
yeah, I get it. If you threw 2 guys off, I mean, I get it, but I don't really love it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You just kind of expected those to be the best 2 rides of the bronc ride, I guess, right?
That's what it's kind of like you get why they sometimes hold a re-ride till after the rodeo at the NFR, but you don't really love it. Is it kind of like that?
Maybe so, but see, that's kind of different. I don't know. Like at the NFR, I want to see the reride. Like every point counts, right? Especially at the NFR. Like that's a whole nother discussion. But you know what? It's still cool. I think a ride-off is cool. It's very sports. The progressive, I think, is fantastic. I love progressive. You know that I love progressive events. It just was a little bit of a letdown, right? For those to not be the strongest 2 bronc rides of the night. That's kind of all I, have to say about it.
Okay. So moving on to the calf roping. So the reigning champ of the world, Riley Webb, has now, he won it this year. What was he? 7-6 in the last one. I love that picture. I wish we could see the full horizontal view, because I think that shows like total intensity. Him and his horse Rudy, but he's won that rodeo 2 of the last 3 years, and he's I don't know. What can you say? That kid, he's obviously the complete package. You're not hearing it from me for the first time. Just watch him rope. So the barrel race, Cassie Mowry barely squeaked by Haley Kinsel, 2/100ths of a second. Cassie, it's her second Houston title, but her first one on Jarvis, which, shows the cowgirl that she is, but that's, the winning.
And remember, if you go back, or if you remember what we broadcast, everybody did, but I think we were the first to really talk about the Jarvis story, right?
Oh.
And that's, so now every time I see those two together, how can you not root for them, right? You just can't.
Right.
It's just such a compelling story.
It is such a compelling story. And like Cassie said, when she just won Houston for the second time, but for the first time on Jarvis, she said, this horse just knows when I need him the most. And that was the case at the NFR, after losing her fiance and all, who owned Jarvis. I mean, the whole thing is anyway, but 2/100ths of a second was the difference between 65,000 for first and 30,000 for second for Haley. And again, we will get to Haley a little bit, because that's been kind of a hoot on social media. Also, when we get to feedback, Taylor Munsell 2-7 to win the breakaway roping. I thought it was as cool to see Jackie Crawford. They're starting to call her the queen, who won Houston last year, in Taylor's corner in the Final Four. Just like I thought it was really cool to see Eric Rogers and Derek Begay's corner, when they were going head to head in the Final Four. And that's the sportsmanship and camaraderie of rodeo that you just don't see in all sports. In the bull riding, Tristan Hutchings, 91.5 on a bull that backed away from his hand. He wins it. There are a few fun notes for me about Tristan Hutchings. As of about a week and a half before Houston, he had won $0 in the world standings, and apparently left the NFR last year with a torn PCL and MCL, so hadn't seen much action this year. So this was a major spike. Another interesting thing that actually came from the Clown family's matriarch, Carla Harrison, who's from California and used to announce our junior rodeos before she moved to Oklahoma to Freckles and Edith's house in Soper, right? Anyway, she told me that T. Hutch had to take his girlfriend Delaney to the hospital for emergency appendix surgery, and they sprung her out of the hospital just in time for her to carefully attend Sunday's championship finals. And then, this I think is interesting. 3 of the 4 in the Final Four bucked off. Tristan was the only one who made the whistle in the Final Four. Stetson Wright, Mason Moody, and Wasey Shala. Unfortunately, Wasey was bucked off and knocked out and carried out on a stretcher. I've been asking around to try to find out how he's doing, and I haven't heard.
I heard that there's some, unless I saw this wrong, but I think Polhema said he walked out, and I saw on Facebook that he's walked out and okay, but what I saw on TV wasn't him walking out. I saw him strapped to a backboard going down the alley, unless I saw it wrong. So it'd be really interesting. Did you said you weren't able to get an injury update? I couldn't find anything.
Around, and it used to be that the Justin Sports Medicine team constantly updated me, and now with the HIPAA laws, it's really different now. That's so I've been kind of asking around, but haven't heard much, which may be a good thing. Maybe he just needs a few days of rest, hopefully. But I did think it was interesting that Stetson, Mason Moody, and Wasey Shala, they bucked off, but they split second, third, and fourth. Each one won $20,000 of ground money for bucking off, and it counts toward the world bull riding standings. That's a pretty big deal because not very many rodeos pay 20 grand, and they just got paid 20 grand for bucking off. So that's a little bit wild.
I noticed that when I saw the leaderboard. It must have been written that way in the ground rules. assumed in most cases that stuff pushes up, right? And so I'm with you. That is not inconsequential points and money. And for a disqualification in that round, one has to say, because then here's the deal. If you think about it, your only goal there ought to be to get in the Final Four. If you think about it, right?
Well, I mean, the one thing I'll say, I'll say two things about this. One, the bull riders themselves voted for ground money to count. So they voted, which means when we're at the NFR and only one guy rides and wins a fortune in one round, like has happened in recent times, it all counts. But bull riders voted as a group for that. And the other thing that is of note is that, like, especially with Boise Shala and Stetson Wright being, I believe, 1-2 in the all-around race, Stetson in the lead right now, that 20,000 ground money in the bull riding does not count in the all-around. And we'll get back to a little bit.
I didn't know that.
So that's fair because the bull rider decided counts for their event, but that wouldn't be fair because the other events weren't like that. Like you couldn't get, it just, that's not how but that was
still though. I would rather the guy that rode the bull get 125,000 personally. Now, I'm sure people are going, well, that gives him a gold buckle. Well, it's an over $2 million rodeo, and he was the only successful ride in the progressive final round. So
historically, he would get before the bull riders voted this way, he would get all the money, but the ground money wouldn't count toward the world standings historically before they made this change.
I understand, but in a normal setting, all of that money would go to the one in a typical set of ground rules. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know at our rodeo, if everybody bucks off, that money goes up. And then in our rodeo, if everybody bucks off and nobody rides, we don't split the money up between the guys. It goes to charity because Tommy Joe believes that you should complete an 8-second ride to get paid. That's my opinion. It's not everybody's opinion, but that's mine. So,
if guys buck off at your rodeo, they don't get ground money?
If everybody does.
Oh.
Right. Okay. So that's, because again, I don't know that it depends on how you look at it, but I'm just not in favor of dividing it up 8 ways for 8 guys that got thrown off. Now, there's all kinds of arguments. A person say, well, you go back to the earlier round. I get all of that, but it's just personal narrative here. I think, here's the thing. I wonder, I could be wrong, but I wonder, and this is probably going to get me in trouble, but I wonder if it changes your mentality when you crawl over the chute and you realize that you're probably going to get paid in that set of 4, right? You're still going to come home with a lot of money, whether you make it 8 seconds or not in their scenario. Fair? I mean, even if the first 2 guys would have rode, then they would have split the bottom 2 holes up. You see what I'm saying? So I guess I'd have to look at the payout scenarios, but you just wonder if there wouldn't be a little more.
Well, I mean, it can happen in the timed events too. You can get to the end and, miss your last steer or calf and still get, you could still, you could get a check for 30 grand for second. Right. I mean,
yeah. Anyway. I guess it's just kind of I don't know. That's just, not everybody agrees with me on this, and that's fine.
Another note, that Mike Serby died during the run of Houston. Somehow it felt fitting to me, like that he would make his exit during this rodeo, that he'd been a stock contractor there for over 50 years. His sons were there front and center, Binion and Chase. They get home and be with him, when he passed. But, Mike he loved that rodeo, and him being one of the inaugural Hall of Rodeo, their first Hall of Fame class last year was Tallman, Charmaine, and Mike Serby. And so this, and looks like you can see Jack Roddy there on the right of Mike, and Billy Minnick on the left, and maybe it's cut out because of formatting or whatever, but they're over there on the left. Was Serby and Jack Roddy, 3 of the 4, Billy, they're all Hall of Famers. They're all Ben Johnson recipients in Oklahoma City Hall of Fame. And, rodeo that loved it as much as anyone. And to be losing that generation is hard for me, because they've been such a big deal. And that history, they lived some extraordinary times in our sport. And I just hope that enough of it is preserved. I was at Salinas the other day, and I want to track down the oral histories taken many years ago of Jack Roddy and my dad talking about Salinas, because I want to hear it in their voices. And this week, when I've been talking to people like Derek Begay and Aaron Sinigine and Eric Rogers, I said, can I record this? Because I want my great grandchildren to not just read this, but hear it in your voice, And I wish I would have done more of that with my dad, because, those stories died with them. Then, now I guess ultimately with people like me of my generation, because then no one will, will have heard them. And so, gosh, there's so much.
Mike was interesting to listen to, right? He had a interesting tone to his voice, kind of a higher pitched. Mike Serby's a legend. There's a handful of people that I will say are legends, right? It's one thing to live a long time in the sport, and some of those people get called legends just because they lived longest or did it longest. That doesn't make a legend to me. A legend to me is someone who has made an impact, an actual impact in whatever their field or career is. And Mike Serby did that. Cotton Rosser did that. These are guys that impacted our entire way we view rodeo today.
The thing, okay, so in any of the currents, any of these guys who've been talking about, Stetson Wright included, they have seen Mike Serby as a little elderly cowboy, right? But now I'm seeing some of these things come back to life in old videos and stuff of like, did you see the thing where Miles Harris out there? They're out Houston.
He's on the swinging dummy.
And Mike is riding that thing, or Mike in his suit and tie is out there hauling ass on a pickup horse, picking up a bronc or whatever. Like, he fought bulls. And I love the stories, like, when they have his service, they're gonna have the reception at his beloved Pepper Pod, little cafe or whatever, at home in Colorado. And I love hearing things like, when children were well behaved, he would send ice cream sundaes over to their table, stuff like that. Or I thought it was so neat of the Serby family to honor him by saying, instead of sending flowers or memorial donations, have a steak with your family. Take your family to a rodeo. I just thought that was, really cool. So
I agree.
Anyway,
that was cool.
Houston, I didn't want to leave it without looking at, okay, who did and did not take the world standings lead because of their win at Houston. So we have, number 1 on Ryder Wright, Tucker Allen, Derek Begay, Coulter Todd, Riley Webb, Cassie Mowry, and Taylor Munsell. 7. Did not take the world lead, Rocker Steiner, because Bradley Miller is still in the lead. Did not take the lead, Tristan Hutchings, because Wasey Shawla and Stetson Wright are 1 and 2, right? Because that 20,000 counted, they stayed ahead of him in the world standings. It's pretty interesting, I think.
It's very interesting. One would assume that 65,000 this early in the season would automatically click you to first, but I think that's a testament to how rodeo's evolving. And these big money rodeos aren't a curse, people; they're a good thing.
Well, on a side note, because so many people have asked me, because some people got frustrated or whatever, and they're like, "Why isn't the PRCA updating the Houston standings, so quickly or whatever?" It's because I just wanted to explain it really, really quickly. It's because with rodeos with different formats like that do not fit the secretary system, which automatically populates if a normally formatted rodeo or more of a standard format, the secretary, keys in the results and it populates through the secretary system, the website, bam, 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 it's done. And
another way to say that is Rodeo Houston gets to do what Rodeo Houston wants to do. That's another way to say what you just said. I'm sorry. Go ahead. They get to do it exactly the way Rodeo Houston does. And remember, I said that's fine because they're spending so much money, but they get to do what they want to do. Not everybody gets to do what Houston does.
I see a bee in your bonnet.
No, I'm just stating that's a fact. Not every rodeo gets to do what Rodeo Houston does. That's a fact. Has no bee in any bonnet.
Okay. So I was also going to just mention Dusty Tuckness, the bullfighter, worked his 300th Houston performance. That's pretty cool when you think about it. That's a lot. And I think we mentioned before, but John Harrison did, replace Leon Coffey after, was it 31 years in the barrel?
I think so, yeah.
So, but, Leon's still around and all that. So I feel like this is a perfect segue right on into some feedback and some responses with facts that we've dug up for people.
Yeah, a couple comments on Houston. For one, shout out to Andy Seiler. Of course, I watch different pieces of the rodeo than you do, Kendra. I'm looking, it's a curse because I'm looking at everything a lot of people aren't looking at. And I tell you what, for Seiler to be in the room with two of the strongest, not only voices, but personalities on a microphone, Seiler, hopefully he hears this, really good job. Very smooth, listened, brought out stuff that they missed. If they missed things, fit in well, had some humor. Great job, Andy Seiler. I thought that was fantastic.
He did do a great job. And I've known, I first heard Andy Seiler, I think, at the college finals where he's worked very closely with Boyd. I'm presuming that's part of the connection that got him to Houston. I've also, kind of been by his side when he announced the Junior World Finals in Vegas, which is now going to go back to the Junior NFR. And he did a beautiful job there too. I think Andy Seiler is like a good dude. And so he did right by those kids.
Yep.
And he was really gracious about, if somebody crashes and burns, he doesn't just laugh at them or whatever. He's really he's a good dude and he knows what he's talking about. And I totally agree with you. He filled in some spots without ever discrediting anybody else or, slighting anybody or making somebody look foolish for missing something, even if he had to correct something that was maybe just misstated, in the heat of the battle. But yeah, he did a great job.
But it's fun to correct people and make them look foolish. It's one of my hidden joys.
Talents.
Go ahead. Yeah, I'm talented at it. I have the ability to try to figure out how to make someone look foolish. And so, yeah, we got that. And I think we'll cover some other stuff on feedback about Houston, a few different things. But listen, hats off to H-Town. Great event. Fantastic. Love the guitars. Love the imagery. Love the clean arena and the branding. it's a pillar of the rodeo business and community, and really cool.
And their television is amazing. And I did ask, because I had a few people ask me, like, why in the world do they give guitars, which I think are fun and different, you know? And they said basically that, but kind of a little fun fact is that they give the cowboys guitars, and then they give the stars of the concerts buckles. But they kind of figured cowboys get so many buckles. And of course, the cowboy gets a buckle if you win Houston. But to win your Super Series is pretty fun. And obviously, people had a lot of fun with the guitar presentations for the Super Series. So
cool event. Hats off, Houston. Job well done. All right.
You guys ready for some feedback?
Yeah, let's hit the feedback.
All right. At first, we got a comment from Facebook. Why in the world did they gift Rocker Steiner? That was not a 91-point ride, maybe an 87, 88. His right foot was actually down on 2 different jumps. Looking at it, scoring the way you should score. Don't gift people just because they have a big name and they cause lots of trouble.
Okay. Okay. I'm not going, because we're fact-based here, I'm not going to get into any argument with any no spinners about judging. That kid rides damn good. He rides good. Period. He rides good. He spurs horses. Also, I think a little bit because of his frame, it kind of reminds me of Charlie Sampson. A lot of you guys don't remember this, but we've talked about this on this podcast. Jim Sharp, how he rode bulls compared to like a Charlie Sampson. I think Rocker makes some horses look ranker than a different guy on their back would because of his size and his motion. So we'll talk about this later, I think, more in feedback, because there's a lot of feedback about the kid rode. I think they placed him right. But I want to take a few seconds to talk about the whole the last line. They cause lots of trouble. I want to take some people back on a little bareback rider history lesson. Bareback riders are a unique breed. The current rodeo fan really thinks about, probably one of the primary people they think about is Casey Field. Casey Field's demeanor isn't typical of what I know a bareback rider as. And I'll tell you, let me say some names that probably most of you listening won't know, but those of you who do are going to get a smile. How about Bob Wilfong? Let's think about Bob Wilfong, if you remember Bob Wilfong. TJ Walter, Jack Ward. You know, these guys were tough. They were bitey. They were feisty. They had no problem telling you off or punching you in the mouth. And this one there might be some listeners that remember this guy. Does anybody remember Larry Sandvik?
Wild man.
Yeah. And so, they act like Rocker is just this horrible condemnation on the cowboy breed because he's a thoroughbred in a pen of quarter horses. The kid's got fire. He cusses, he thises, he that's. That's fine. But I don't care what he does. He rides bareback horses good. So he deserved to win Houston. We'll talk about this more later. This is my opinion. I don't want to get into the judging, but the kid rides. And you can't take it away from him. You might not like him, you might love him, or you might love to hate him. But I bet you watch. Why? So you can either bitch about it or praise him. You love him, you love to hate him. And so, rock on, Rocker. I've known the Steiner family forever. Look at his dad. Look at his dad, Sid. I mean, he broke the mold, but way before Rocker broke the mold. So this whole he's a bad guy, causes lots of trouble. Okay.
Do you know how many? old time Cowboys called me when I was at the PRCA headquarters and put Sid Steiner on the cover of the sports news with mostly no shirt and tattoos and piercings, I got a raft. But I was like, but can he bulldog? So
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's what I think. Do you have any comment on,
let's go to the next one because I don't know if I could do it without.
Okay, this one's good. Now, Greg, you have to read this.
All right, no problem. The kid ride good enough to win on his own merit, but if the judges cheated someone else out of first again and loaded him because the announcers were busy licking his balls, call me old school.
Hey, don't say, if you watch this show or listen, don't say we're scared. You can't. And by the way, if we had an audio guy, I would have clipped you, Greg, saying that and used it over and over and over and over again. Just you saying licking his balls is worth it to me. So, Kendra, you get the ball licker.
Okay. I was raised with brothers and boys, and I thought farts were funny when I was a kid and the whole 9 yards, and this is killing me.
Just actually, the visual image I get of Polhamus and Rocker and that one line, holy moly.
Okay, I saw other comments that were like, he might be the best gay bareback rider. Oh my God, people. Okay, I don't even have anything to say except I guess thanks for the laughs because that's always appreciated and welcomed. But for those who don't know how close this was, like, okay, Bradley Miller made an amazing ride too. He was 89.5. And Rocker was 91 on Calgary's Agent Lynx, which is the same horse that Leighton Berry won Houston on last year. So, and I mean, again, it's a judged event. We're not judges. We're not here for that. But it is, Rocker, you are right when you say you don't turn away. You watch. And you watch because you want to see him ride. You want to, I mean, we had plenty of chances to read his lips. And you know what? I feel like I've seen this kid go through sort of an evolution with like the lip reading and stuff. I think in the early going, his fire was just unharnessed. He couldn't contain it. And he was just being himself. And then I feel like it's possible that he got enough guff that possibly his family may not have, somebody, in his camp may or may not have told him, cool it, try not to do that or whatever. And then I think he's just come down to, you know what, I'm going to be me. And if people hate me for it, so be it. If they love me for it, great. But I also did see some things that I thought were sort of cool where people don't usually see and don't usually talk about it, but we're like, Rocker went and, hung out with some FFA kids, or Rocker went and hung out with the security crew at our NRG Stadium. And, whenever I've been around him, he's been a perfectly nice kid. I'm not at the Ragers with Rocker, of course, but he's always been polite and nice to me. I don't know, I don't,
the couple things on this one. So we could have a conversation and probably argue with some no spinners all day long on, is Rocker a good guy or not? He's always been a very polite kid. He comes from a good family. Yeah, he's spicy. But here's the thing that I've got to defend here. These people out there that get mad at the announcers for selling the product that they have in front of them and acting like it's the announcer's fault if the judges take into consideration the reaction of the crowd. Remember when we talked to the new judging director, we talked about that. The announcer's job is to entertain the fans. And let me tell you something, when Rocker Steiner's about to nod his head, you know you've got something to talk about. So hats off, Boyd, Bob, Andy. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're paid to do. And all of these people that bash these announcers for taking advantage of the opportunity to sell a ticket are just flat. You're off base. You're out. You want to get angry? Get angry at the judge if you think that was the case, but don't get angry at those of us that are trying to sell tickets and make your sport better. Now, I don't think there were 2 points. This is personal narrative because it's not fact. I don't think there were 2 points difference between those two. Okay. I don't think the gap was as big as they marked them, but I do believe I do think they placed them correctly. So on that part, that's what I personally think. So
to me, just the basics from watching it was that like Bradley had a great horse and made a flawless ride. And what's really difficult, especially for those of us who haven't ridden a bucking horse, and is by comparison gauging the degree of difficulty on Rocker's horse. You know, would he even say that it was a flawless spur ride? No, probably not. But the horse maybe made a few more points. You know, so I just think that's really a tough one. And I wouldn't pretend to say that, oh yeah, well, I know better than anybody. No.
Well, and he's looser on their back. If you watch his upper body, because of his size, he's a little more loose. Do you know what I'm saying? He's coming at it, but his feet are stabbing the front end no matter where his body is, right? And there's some guys that have such core strength and are bigger and stronger, actually just physically bigger than Rocker, that they sit right in the middle. You know what I mean? And so again, I think that probably helps the points on the horse, you know, a little bit. But anyway, yeah, so all you lickers out there, all you that think that you got a lollipop. By the way, this segment, we are hats off to all of you thumb warriors that have the brain of an amoeba. Here we go. Who's next?
It's about Haley. Haley needs to hang it up. Sister ran off at Houston. They clearly can't keep up anymore.
There you go, amoeba.
This is almost better than the balls being licked, and I bet you Haley would tell somebody to lick some balls too. Okay, this is funny. Come on now, this is just funny. Okay, so at just Houston, no, to back up before we talk just briefly about Houston, Haley is famous for putting Sister first, and if Sister needs a few days off, if Sister just is, you know, whatever, wakes up on the wrong side of the bed, Haley will sacrifice winning for that horse. Like it's like, you know, Sister owes me nothing and I owe her everything, is Haley's famous words. So at Houston, Haley in her Super Series made her first 2 runs on a horse, Reese. And, you know, it was okay. She might have won a little check or something. But then, you know, okay, well, you got to get her Super Series to move on. So she pulls out the big gun Sister for her 3rd run in her Super Series and wins it. All right, sweet. So then she goes on to the semifinals. Well, this is what they're talking about. So, I mean, I don't think any of us have ever seen this, you know, headed to the 3rd barrel and Sister, you know, had kind of a moment, and it appeared pretty obvious watching it that it had something to do with the 2 guys kneeled down to the right of the 3rd barrel with rakes out there, that vast wide open arena. You know, they're kind of out there in the middle of the pen, sort of like position there to do that. But, you know, so it was hard, and I, you know, just you could read the randomness.
Do you think those guys do you think they spooked the horse?
What I'm saying is it was easy to read the room, as, you know, Haley was class. You know, she pulled her up and left the arena, but you could tell as she walked out the gate and there was a judge standing right there, she might have had a word or two, of a, something, obviously, like in the heat of the moment and everything else. But
It
for
just
what did
seems.
this person say? Haley needs to hang it up. Okay, so then let's just finish the brief story. So she gets a no time in the semifinals. So she gets thrown to the wild card where you have to win it to come back. And Haley and sister win it. And so then to come back in the finals and be 2/100ths of a second from the title with a minor hind end slip on the third barrel, and then someone goes on Facebook and says Haley needs to hang it up. I mean, that's just amusing at best, frustrating for her probably, but by now I'm sure Haley's like Teflon. I mean, whatever you want to say, folks. Nobody's ever going to know what it has felt like at the steering wheel of that situation. But you know what I think also I would say to the people that are like, oh, sister's washed up, which is just laughable. It's so ridiculous. But the other thing, over the years, when you win that much, people start throwing darts at you for like, oh, it must be nice to ride such a push button horse or whatever. Well, if you can't tell what a cowgirl Haley Kinsel is and how physically fit and how well she rides that horse, clearly the horse is not push button, folks, and Haley breaks it down to the nth degree on what she does, because she knows that she's on something special. Oh, that once in a lifetime unicorn. And Haley and sister didn't luck into anything. So stop. That's what I'll say.
Well, and we've got a bunch to get to, and we're trying to keep these shorter, so we're going to keep rolling. But the only thing I'll say is there's a lot of rakers out there. There's been places. I mean, I think it was just an odd moment or caught an eye or something. But let's keep going. What's the next one, Greg?
The next one is, in your guys' opinion, why do you think Dean Thompson wasn't given a re-ride in the 4-man round at Houston on Sunday? Being an armchair judge, it sure seems like the horse he had didn't have a fair chance at winning. I was wondering what your guys' thoughts are on that situation.
Greg, do you have that ride?
I do have that ride.
Let's take a look at it. Now, what I don't know, as we watch this ride, because I haven't found out yet. Oh, that's not a re-ride horse. He crow hops right there at the end.
He didn't have much kick to him. Whatever.
He did the first 4 jumps. In the end, he kept it at his belly. I get that. Now, I don't know the answer. I could not get the answer to this, but there are in some situations in these Final Fours and stuff, they actually sometimes do put no re-rides, believe it or not, in there. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that they did here. I don't know, but I wonder. But that wasn't him. That was O'Rocker.
Well, that's because he ended up winning after that.
The click on it. We don't want to get into judging here. That has nothing. Judging is far from fact. Kendra, if you have something to say about that, the horse did not run off. Okay. He did not run off. That's all I'll say. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I'm not a judge. Let's keep moving.
All right. The next feedback. You don't combine all around and event earnings for total earnings. Stetson, 105K. His all around total is his bull riding and saddle bronc earnings combined. He's won 55,000-ish in 11 rodeos, not 105.
Okay, well, I'm not really sure did you want to go?
No, go ahead. I'll let you go first.
I was just going to say that I'm not sure about these numbers. I looked today, and like in the all around, Stetson has 72,816. Here's what people need to know. And in the bull riding, he has 82,000. See how he has more in one event than he has in the all around? But that's because in the all around, ground money does not count in the all around. Extreme bulls money does not count in the all around. You have to win 3,000 minimum in at least 2 events to qualify for the all around. And you can only count 70 rodeos as official in the all around to keep it even amongst the different, different events can have different official rodeo counts for their event world championship, but for the all around, they keep it across the board. So correct, you do not add the two. You do not add his saddle bronc riding and bull riding earnings and get his all around. You have to remove like X bulls and ground money and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that probably came from a comment I made earlier. I guess I didn't mean to mislead in saying that was equal to points, but that still means he put that much money in his pocket, however you shake it up. And I think that's what I meant if I didn't clearly state it. He still cashed a check, and it still pays a feed bill. All right, what's the next one, Greg?
This one goes back to our discussion about the last podcast where we talked about the Calgary Stampede. The reason the Calgary Stampede will not allow team roping in the rodeo is the animal welfare issue. The chuck wagon is as big of an attraction as the rodeo and has been attacked for animal welfare at every corner. Although the activist numbers are small, very small, it appears that the CS board is quite sensitive to it, proven by the many changes they have made to the chuck wagon races. They do not want to involve any event that the animal activists can attack, no matter how unfounded it is. I give the example when Tough Cooper over and undered his horse and was suspended. Total overreaction. Team roping is the most popular rodeo event by tenfold and should be in the rodeo. And then there's this one last little comment. If it was a female event, the woke could use it to support their ideology, and it would be in like Breakaway.
Okay. We could have an entire podcast on this one, and we're running long. So I'm going to cut down half of what I would comment on this. So I'm going to take it bullet point by bullet point. I agree, Calgary's concerned about animal welfare. However, if you've ever seen a chuck wagon race wreck, I don't know that you could have anything compare to a chuck wagon race wreck in the team roping. Point number 2, did they overreact when Tough Cooper over under his horse? I'm going to let the no spinners come up with their own opinion, but here's the deal. The guys that write the checks, sell the tickets, put on the rodeo, have the right to decide if their content is fitting for their audience, period. Next point. Team roping is the most popular event by tenfold in the sport of rodeo. Well, this was probably a team roper that wrote this. I'm not saying that team roping is not very popular, but to say it's the tenfold most popular, maybe most passively competed in. But listen, we run crowd meters at events to see where the applause is, the highest level of applause. And if you want to know what it is, it's typically barrel racing, and number 2's mutton busting. So there you have it. So tenfold, I think, is out of line. And then the whole woke thing, if a female event, and it may be that they added Breakaway to Calgary because they wanted more pretty women in the sport and featured at the event. Again, it's their event. They can do whatever they want, whether you like it or not, frankly. And so don't get woke involved, because then you're going to get me talking politics. And I think that if we had some level of doge in the PRCA, that might be a good thing. So here you go. Let's just, Kendra, I'll let you hit this a little bit and we'll go on to the next one.
No, let's just keep moving.
All right.
This is kind of a little bit more on that. Hey, guys, we're talking about team roping not being part of The big show at Calgary last week. I'm a lifelong rodeo fan and even sit on a board of a small rodeo. In my opinion, team roping just doesn't add much value to the average fan. You can see it when the grandstands empty out for the bathroom breaks and the concession runs during that event. Compare it to Breakaway, where the stands stay way more full. So, from a committee's perspective, we have the opinion to add it, but have to put up double the equal prize money for something that doesn't keep fans engaged. Why bother including it? Love the show, keep them coming. And I think this is what you said, Tommy, last week about, it's kind of a, puts double the money up for one event.
Kendra, any comments on this? I mean,
Well, yeah, just one of you just said that that last person probably a team roper. Well, this person might well be a breakaway roper or whatever. I mean, everybody has their opinion and is entitled to an opinion, but I have a lifelong strong opinion about equal money in the team roping. I do not view it as double money. I view it as equal money. So my point about this conversation is that I have asked the same question for 38 years about team roping in Calgary and equal money everywhere. And I still just don't really have a straight answer. So that's kind of my bottom line. But I mean,
equal money is absolutely should be. They should get paid equal money, but it does cost two added monies for one discipline. That's the financials of it.
And they both pay their equal end to participate also to get there.
Correct. I agree with that. All right, next.
And finally, here's just a couple more Facebook comments about the team roping. Seems to me not having equal money for the team ropers could also greatly affect the all-around race. Great conversation, but unfortunately the powers to be are not talking, and someone needs to pick a fight is complete BS.
Okay,
Kendra?
sorry. I was screening a call, and so if I stuck my finger in the camera and everything else, sorry about that.
It just says you were paused, which was interesting. I can't pause you from my side, or I probably would every now and then, but I can't. Okay.
Well, it looks all funky on my side now. I was just screening a phone call. Sorry. I thought I had, oh my God, same thing happening again.
Hey,
Okay.
if you want to see Kendra's thumb, pay attention. That's what her thumbprint looks like. Here we go. Go on, girl.
Sorry. Okay. The all-around race, great conversation, but unfortunately the powers that be are not talking. Okay. Of course, not having equal money impacts the all-around race. Of course. And I think it was brought up when we spoke about this a time or two ago that in fact, as one example, in 1997, Joe Beaver barely lost the all-around race to Dan Mortensen because he was roping for half the money back then at the NFR, but also all year long. So it definitely impacts the all-around race. There's no other way to say it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it isn't right. I mean, if you're good at team roping, you're at a disadvantage if they're not paying equal money. I think if you have the event at your rodeo, you choose to have it, the guys should get paid the same. And I did get confirmation just now while we were sitting here, is that in that Final Four, rerides at Houston, rerides were allowed. So that wasn't a ground rule that they couldn't give a reride that I brought up earlier. And I didn't say that it was. I just said that in some cases it could be. That was not the case. They just chose not to give him a reride. So, all great feedback. We love it when you send us feedback. You give us great things to talk about. We really highlighted, there's a handful of these people that I would probably play Sudoku against, is all I'm saying. I would go ahead and do some Sudoku or chess or anything on a handful of these comments, right? But all very interesting, and you can dig something out of every comment, right? There's a root to that. So we've been going a while. Kendra, final thoughts on all of this stuff we've been talking about.
I just, I appreciate people feeling comfortable asking us anything, and I appreciate the access we have to find the answers and get back to them with the facts. But I will say that when you put something on social media or, anywhere that's public like that, you're fair game. And it happens all the time where someone will put something, horrible or ugly. I mean, are you really going to call Rocker Steiner gay in a comment on social media? I mean, that's just rude. It's not true, but if it was, is it any of your business? It's like, why would anybody, or talk about the announcers, licking somebody's balls or whatever? It's like, what are you doing? I mean, anyway, I guess, what I would say is, like, think about, I've always thought my whole life, like, when I was, like, deciding the right or wrong thing to do, like, would my parents be proud of me for this? Would my grandparents be proud of me for this? It's like, if I'm going to say something or do something, am I doing my family proud? I don't want to dishonor my family or who we are. And sometimes it just gets, we're all entitled to opinion. This is America, that's great.
America.
But we don't all have to agree about things. But gosh darn it, if you put something out there, then you're going to have to take your licks. If you're going to put it out there and then people shred you for it, you brought this on yourself, right? I mean, it's fair.
Well, there are some gay people in rodeo. I don't think Rocker is one, but there are some in the game. But Rocker's not one of them, I don't think. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I think all lifestyle stuff is irrelevant. At the end of the day, you go out there and you win. And when you win, you get a buckle. And then, and isn't it a joy, like you said, Kendra, and I'll agree to this, when champions have these really admirable qualities like Coulter and Begay, that makes it, for some of us, that much better. But for others that are wild hides, right? They prefer to see Rocker read his lips and go, yeah. And you know what?
Well,
it's all part of the game.
I feel like, for me, there are worthy heroes. And when, Derek Begay, when there are Navajo children watching him, and it's not just in the arena, but who he is as a human being, like heroes. When my kids looked up to, Derek and Coulter or Trevor Brazil, it was like, thank you. I tell them, thank you for being a worthy hero and role model to my children, because my kids watched when Trevor pulled up, they watched how he stepped out of his truck, how he tucked in his shirt, how he cinched up his horse. It's just, but
sports is full of heroes that are not all quality, as is our sport of rodeo. There, you can look back and probably find a few, or more than a few, that have got some riddled past. And by the way, those of you that are out there talking about all this, I just challenge you to, I'm wondering what you did when you were 18 years old. Anyway, thank you for being a part of No Spin. Those of you watching us on YouTube, thanks for watching us. You can see Kendra's thumb. You can see my ugly hat. You can see Greg in his really stylish hoodie, well-groomed face. Thank you for watching us on Facebook Live, and those of you that are listening to us on the podcast, hopefully going to work or out to feed or whatever, thank you for being a part of No Spin. Thanks for being a No Spinner. We'll see you guys next week. We're doing this stuff weekly. Until we meet again, God bless you. Be safe. Keep rodeoing.